Hey everyone, and we're here live, Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. We're here from the Rivers Sportsbook at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. Rube, how you doing?
Doing well.
Yeah, we have a lot to talk about. We were kind of our brains were a little scrambled on early Monday morning, I guess at that point, trying to figure out what the heck we just saw. The Eagles win 40-33. So we have some more to talk about from that game. We have some injury news to get to, and some other tidbits sprinkled in at the end. This is the Eagle Eye Podcast presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Rube, the news on Tuesday, significant news. CJ Gardner-Johnson suffered a lacerated kidney in the first quarter against the Packers. Gonna miss some time. We don't know how much time that's going to be, but the Eagles will miss him.
Yeah, such a playmaker. And, we'll get into the guys who are going to try to replace him. But, he's just a guy that's what he doesn't give you as a tackler, he's making up for in playmaking. Big plays at big moments, really clutch guy, very athletic. And, a guy that you would think the Eagles would be interested in bringing back. We'll get to there in the offseason, but it's a big loss. And however well Reed Blankenship played, and he did play really well, it's a big loss to lose a guy like CJGJ. Zach Ertz had a similar injury. I guess it was worse because he had rib damage. We don't know the exact extent of this either.
You know what they say, no two kidney lacerations are the same.
And he was, and I think Gannon mentioned today, Tuesday, he was in so much pain. It's just you could see,
Yeah, he was down on the field for a long time, long enough that Sirianni, whenever the head coach makes a visit to the field, it's been going on for a while. It's somewhat significant. No trip to the blue tent. It was right inside.
Right.
Which is a good job by the medical team, not wasting any time.
Yeah. So
it's funny because in some ways it's like obviously a very serious injury. We're talking about vital internal organs getting lacerated. That's not good. If you're really callous like we are sometimes, and you have to be, you look at it from a football perspective. It's not a season-ending injury. An ACL or something, you're out for the year. He's expected to come back.
Yeah, and we don't know how long. Zach Ertz played 2 weeks later in a playoff game.
And it was a playoff game.
It's probably a mistake.
And he pushed it. There were people who didn't want him to play in that game. And
Lisa Ertz.
Yeah, his mother, of course. Yeah, there were a lot of people who questioned that decision. And that was a different circumstance, obviously.
Yeah, it was a playoff game. But, yeah, I don't like to speculate, but you would think at least a couple games.
Mm-hmm.
I think is fair. Nick did say on Monday, hopefully not IR, which I thought was significant. It's the only really timeline type tidbit we've gotten.
Yeah.
So at that point, they were hopeful not IR, which would be at least 4 games, which would, take them down to the last couple games of the regular season. So,
and I think he's valuable enough that you wouldn't put him on IR if you think there's a chance he can be back before 4 games.
Sure, unless you clinch the number 1 seed before you have to make that decision. But yeah, I would expect that he'd be back. There's only 6 games left, so when when it's reported it's not season ending, that's encouraging, I guess, at this point.
And I think for everyone who says something like that, we're also anticipating playoffs here this year.
I think they have a pretty good shot.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
They actually have a chance to clinch a playoff berth in Week 13.
Yeah, I was looking at that. I couldn't figure that out, but is that definite?
Yeah, definitely. It's a little convoluted when you're this early.
It usually is.
It would take other outcomes: Washington, San Francisco, and Seattle.
I'll have to lose
or tie, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. Unlikely, but yeah, we'll see. I don't think they'll be celebrating in the locker room if they do clinch.
No, but it tells you how well the season's going that we're talking about it in Week 13.
Yeah, and there's a real kind of disparity between the best teams in NFC, and there's not a lot of middle ground. There's not a lot of average teams. Everyone either sucks or is in the mix here. If this was a normal season, they would have clinched the division by now.
You're right.
10-1.
Yeah. And some seasons, this NFC East has been brutal.
Yeah.
So, you're right. In a lot of years, they would have had this thing wrapped up.
Some years you clinch in the NFC East at 8. When you get to 8-6.
Yeah, not this year.
Not this year. 26-7, I believe now. The division against
Best
non-division
division in
teams.
football, and it's not close.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's a significant loss, and boy, it's just been like every week they're losing one guy. Now they're starting to have a chance to get guys back. Jordan Davis. Did you see Jordan Davis jogging down the tunnel?
I did.
I mean, that does not look like a guy who isn't going to play Sunday. I mean, we'll see.
We'll see.
Obviously, that's not playing football.
Lateral motion.
No, but he's a defensive tackle. He's not moving much anyway.
He moves.
No, he does.
He moves quite a bit.
Obviously, he does. But it was good to see him running like that, and he was really happy. We'll know more Wednesday. I mean, if he's out there, that's a pretty good sign. I think with a 4-week layoff, I don't think you need that 5th week. So I think he would be able to go to some extent, and then each week, and then Avante, and then Dallas, and then let's see, Avante, and then Dallas, and then CJ. So they've been lucky with injuries. They haven't had. Usually it's like a bunch at one position.
Yeah,
and they haven't had that. I mean, secondary you have a couple serious ones,
and they're lucky in the sense that none of those guys you mentioned are season enders. They've had the season ender. They had Derek Barnett in week 1.
That's it.
That's really it. Maybe Marlon could end up being a season ender. But even he's not a starting player. He's not a star player.
He probably would have been inactive anyway.
Well, they probably – I don't know if they would have brought in one of the 2 defensive tackles they brought in.
I think they would have. I don't think Marlon was playing. I don't think, well, we don't need Linval Joseph because we have Marlon Tuipulotu. I think they would have brought them both in.
Okay. I'm not so sure about that.
But who knows? But, yeah, in any case, they've been fortunate. They haven't had those clumps of injuries. They haven't had them at the same position, which has really been the case with this team. They get hammered at receiver or cornerback or just the same position. So they're in good shape from that standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Reed Blankenship.
Yeah.
Went back and rewatched it. It was what we saw live. I mean, there were good plays. There were some risk
which you expect.
Plays. Yeah, which you do expect that. I thought overall, though, he played really well for a guy in his, let's be honest, real first action on defense. He had 2 snaps the week before. This was his first chance on that side of the ball, and I thought he played really well.
Yeah, I did too. He was physical right from the get-go. He just looked comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
He looked like he belonged. He didn't seem lost at all. Maybe on one play he seemed lost, but
he just took a bad angle and then didn't have the recovery speed against a sub 4.4 guy.
Yeah. I think Christian Watson's speed surprised everybody because he doesn't look fast, but he is fast. But look, it's going to happen. And he wasn't the only one, either. But and Jonathan Gannon, for what it's worth, took the hit on that when he said he was too aggressive on his call. It's probably true. Up 14, 9 minutes left. Keep it in front of you. But in any case,
are you saying it's not great to have Marcus Epps on Christian Watson and have the rookie undrafted safety coming in to help?
Probably not ideal. Yep. But yeah, I was really impressed with Reed. The interception was it's not a ball you really see Aaron Rodgers throw. I don't know if his thinking was that's a guy who's never played before. He's not gonna make a play on this ball, but he did. I mean, his anticipation on that play was really good and secured it, caught it. Huge play in that circumstance. And it was hilarious after the game. I mean, Slay's been trying to pick this guy off for a decade, same division as him for 7 years and never got him. And spent like 20 minutes with us on Friday saying how bad he wanted to get him for his Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks. And the kid playing his first game picks him off. So that was pretty funny. He was saying how jealous he was, but he was happy for him. But they're going to need him. And, he left the game for, I guess, a few snaps. Was it 5, maybe 4 or 5?
Yeah, his face mask just got pushed up and his chin strap actually got him on the nose. He was gushing blood.
Yeah, but I was impressed with his toughness, with his tackling. Really sure tackler, which doesn't hurt.
Not afraid to be physical.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll throw some hits. Maybe we'll see if that'll hurt him at some point because sometimes you have guys who are a little over aggressive with trying to get the big hit. But I like the physicality. I like seeing it from the first snap that he got in there. That was fun.
Yeah.
There was one play where Aaron Jones had a head full of steam, and you just see him get stopped, and you couldn't see who was on the other side on the live, and then you see the replay, and you go, oh, that was the rookie in there just stuffing him. A little harder this week.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, Aaron Jones is good, but yeah, Derrick Henry's in another class. But and you look at, again, it's easy to take these for granted. What would the Eagles sign these free agents, these undrafted free agents the day after the draft? Give Howie credit again for finding this kid.
And Reed was like, the way we always talk about this, the way you kind of track what they think of these undrafted guys is the money. They signed 12 undrafted rookies. He was second to last in terms of guaranteed money and signing bonus. He got $55,000 guaranteed, a $5,000 signing bonus. Next to last.
Yeah, and we were impressed with him right from the get-go in training camp. Kind of thought he'd be earmarked for the practice squad, but he just kept making plays, and he was always in the right place. Really smart kid. Again, it talked about just how it was interesting the way he phrased it. He doesn't just memorize coverages, and he really understands and wants to know the why behind them. He's a really smart kid. And I think that interception just shows. I mean, he knew what was happening. He knew where Aaron was going with the ball. First undrafted rookie ever to pick off Aaron Rodgers. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy. You'd think just by happenstance, you've got to play that much in the league, it's going to happen eventually.
Yeah. And first undrafted Eagles rookie with an interception since Rod Hood, who did commit pass interference on Kevin Curtis on the last play of the NFC Championship game in 2008. Rod should have been flagged. You know it.
I think Rod's a big eagle eye.
He is. Yeah, Rod's big.
Rod's just sitting home. Oh, you're ragging on me again. Just the life of Rod Hood.
And we should mention Kayvon too, who lost snaps to. I mean, he wasn't playing that much, but he lost snaps to Reed Blankenship when Reed got elevated, and he's made some plays. I mean, that he had a pass breakup on third down in the end zone, for crying out loud. Huge play. And that's when I'm really impressed, when a guy gets demoted, loses snaps, whatever it is, loses his job and his starting job or his role, and then is forced to play. How does he respond? Do you feel sorry for yourself? Do you stop preparing, stop doing the things that got you that job in the first place? And Kayvon has made some big plays since he got not benched, but since he got demoted, I guess. I've probably haven't been the biggest Kayvon Wallace fan. I don't think he had a good training camp, and I was actually kind of surprised he made the team. But he's made some big plays the last few weeks.
Yeah, and it's funny. The one big play came before he lost his job.
Right.
It was I think it was a 3rd and 12, and he made a really nice tackle. They might need him here because he, at the very least, he goes back to his role as the extra DB in the dime package. But now he's a play away from really playing. Do you think it's just as simple as Reed's a starter, Epps is a starter, and they don't rotate?
I would think so.
I would too.
Yeah.
I wanted to throw something else by you. We don't know how long CJ is out. If it's 2 games, you just say, all right, we're fine with what they had. They'll get by in these games. If it's any longer than that, would you think about bringing in an outside player? It's tough at that position too.
It's tough at that position, and it's tough this late in the season.
Can I give you a name?
Malcolm Jenkins.
What do you think? I mean, he talked to John Clark, last week for the Takeoff podcast with John Clark. Check that one out. And he mentioned, I don't know how serious he was, that, if something happened and the Eagles called him, he'd be ready.
Former teammates with the Saints.
With CJ, yeah.
With CJ, yeah. Malcolm
would be smart enough. He can play in the box. We know that.
Yeah, I mean, I assume he's still in good shape. We saw him driving out of the building. I don't know what kind of shape he
couldn't get a good read on
his fitness level.
Yeah.
I mean, he's always a guy that's taking care of himself. His last year was 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh no, he played last year.
He did play last year.
Yeah.
All right, my bad.
Started all 16 games.
Okay. Yeah, why not? I mean, it's not like he can't learn this defense in about
He's
an hour.
34, so he's not even the oldest guy that they will have brought in.
Be one of the youngest, one of the youngest guys. There's a category in Spotrac where you can index every team by average age.
Mm-hmm.
And Eagles started off like before they made any moves, Quinn and the two D tackles, they were like, I think 6th youngest. Now they're like 11th,
Yeah.
just from a few moves. So that would probably knock them down to about 14.
Well, you have to think too, like those guys have to take roster spots from guys, and those are likely young players.
Well, Marlon, is 23. Yeah. So yeah, so that number really goes up. But yeah, I mean, you hope it doesn't come to that, but you think about it, like Malcolm might need a couple weeks, but for the stretch run for the playoffs, man, I'd take Malcolm Jenkins in a heartbeat.
Yeah, if he was cool with having a limited role in the playoffs, hey.
Yeah, I like the idea.
I don't think it's crazy. It's funny. Normally, I hear these ideas. I'm like, what are we doing here?
He's different. I just think because he's so smart.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming he keeps himself in great shape. It's not like he's been out of the league for,
Yeah. The one thing with the changes in the secondary, when you're talking about like Josiah Scott in there, or you're talking about now Reed Blankenship having to be in there, is just the spatial awareness, especially when they're in zone, because like, you're filling a window of space and you have to have a good sense of where you have to be.
Right.
And honestly, they haven't been great all year with playing the same guys. So you wonder about how moving pieces is going to affect that.
Yeah, well, they don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So I think they have smart guys, and hopefully they figure some things out.
Yeah, and Reed he's a guy you can root for. You know, you won't catch anyone saying a bad thing about Reed Blankenship.
No, that's for sure, especially today, especially this week. And those are the guys, those undrafted guys. And
he kind of reminds me of TJ.
TJ Edwards, I mean, I think Sasha undrafted. I mean, they've got a handful of those guys, and they're always going to outwork everyone. They're always going to be prepared. They're guys that never had anything given to them. They never got a big bonus when they signed. There's definitely a pattern you see in undrafted guys, and they carry it through their whole career. I mean, Kelsey wasn't undrafted. He was a 6, but kind of close to being undrafted, and he's still got that mentality of a guy that's always got to prove himself. High first-round picks don't always carry that with them.
Yeah, and they get benefit of the doubt. They get more chances, whereas like TJ Edwards is playing really well this year. It's still in the back of a lot of people's minds, he wasn't drafted for a reason.
Yeah.
Right? And so same thing with Reed Blankenship. It's like, and some of that's legitimate because physical tools matter.
Right.
And Reed's not like he's not like unathletic necessarily, but he doesn't have that like straight line long speed. We saw that on the Watson touchdown. But you can overcome that, especially like at the linebacker position or the safety position, where your anticipation, your film study can give you an advantage.
And you mentioned TJ. I mean, he's actually gotten faster just over the years, just from training and figuring out how to, shape his body into a faster athlete. I mean, he's gotten more. I don't know if I'm sure a lot goes into it, specific training and diet, nutrition, all that stuff. He's faster than he ever was, and that's made him a better cover linebacker, certainly. Probably a better blitzer, a better blitzer. Who's a better blitzer, blitzing? So you can get faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still don't think that's like his anticipation is the reason TJ is good, though.
I think all of it goes into it.
Okay.
I think becoming a better athlete's really helped him too.
Okay, that's fair. Special teams. We talk about special teams so much, and it's kind of tough to figure out because there are so many different issues we've seen all year, right? It's like this week it's their punt return stink, or this week their kick return stink. Or obviously in this last game, their kick coverage was atrocious. Michael Clay's in charge of it all, and he's the guy who kind of comes under fire. But it is also weird because they're 10-1.
Yeah, it hasn't cost him a game yet. It was funny. I was in, I ran into CVS or Walgreens or something. Do we have any drugstores sponsor us? All right, sponsor us, and I'll make it your Rite Aid. You want Rite Aid? You want take out add, we'll make it Rite Aid. And the guy says to me, Rue, what are we going to do about special teams? I was like, I know it's been bad all year. He goes, how do you give up a 38-yard kick return, a 52, and a 53 in the same game? I was like, how do you know those? He got it right. I don't even know if I got it right, but yeah, he got it right.
There's only 4 kick returns of 50-plus yards in the NFL this year. 2 of them came against the Eagles on Sunday.
Yeah, it's not ideal. And you're right. I mean, early in the year, it was. I mean, they got beat on 2 fake punts.
Mm-hmm. There've been some costly penalties.
Britton Covey had a couple muffs. I think the Eagles recovered both. I believe. I think he recovered both. Yeah, that they definitely had some penalties. They had a field goal blocked. I mean, it's been just a different thing each week, and the only consistent has been punt coverage. Has been really good, but yeah, it was. And look, he's really good. Nixon's really good, and one point Clay made was if we were in a dome, he would have kicked it out of the back of the dome. But you're playing it. It was a rainy night. You're outdoors, heavy air. But the last one was like 4 yards deep.
It was 6.
Was it 6 yards deep?
And that tells you, like,
they don't.
You're taking it out from 6 yards deep.
Yeah,
he thinks he can burn you. And he did. He was right.
He was. That's embarrassing. And look, I'm not going to say it's all Michael Clay's fault, but when things keep going wrong like this, you just have to wonder how prepared they are, how ready they are, and are they using schemes that are that can work in the league?
Yeah. So Nick Sirianni was asked about potentially making changes and like maybe putting some starters, give them some special teams reps. I think that would help.
But it's a risk too.
It's definitely a risk, but we've seen the Eagles do that in the past. They had guys like, Malcolm, who we mentioned before, Rodney, played special teams. So earlier this year, Jordan Davis started playing the wing. Right. And that was a correction, right? They wanted to correct that. They put Jordan Davis out there. So I don't think it's crazy. You have to be careful with that.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to lose Kaiser White to an injury on, a punt return.
Yeah, and you also don't want to make him a step slower in coverage on third down because he just ran down the field on kick coverage.
There's a lot to consider, but I think everybody is just concerned that this is going to cost them a game. And if it's a playoff game, and it's inexcusable. I mean, those games are decided by a play here and a play there for the most part.
And that's the thing. It's like we've seen it all year. We've seen issues pop up one after the other. And we all get that, like, gut feeling that, oh, man, eventually when they play a playoff caliber team and it comes down to the wire, aside from, like, Jake Elliott kicking a field goal, I don't want special teams involved.
That's fair. And I thought Clay he said something interesting that we talked to him today, Tuesday. Howie Roseman pulled him aside and kind of reminded him we're 10-1 here. I just thought it was interesting how the GM felt like he needed to give the special teams coach a pep talk. Kind of seemed a little odd.
Yeah.
But there it is, and 10-1 is a great place to be. But man, imagine being home for the NFC Championship game and you're playing the Vikings, and if special teams blows up and you lose the game. I mean,
Jalen Reagor takes one to the house.
God, how would that be to end the season? Game-winning 91-yard punt return by Jalen Reagor. It's scary.
And it's got to be a weird position for Clay because it's got to feel like you're doing a group project and you haven't helped at all.
Yeah.
Like, the team has an A, but what did you do to help?
Yeah. Yep. It's a precarious situation. We'll be interested to see if there's any significant changes on Sunday.
Gut feeling, you think there will be?
I really don't.
I think they'll change a few pieces.
Maybe.
Probably nothing major.
Yeah. Hey, it's the Nissan Thrill of the Drive event. So gift yourself what you really want this holiday season and shop your local Nissan store or visit nissanusa.com today. Just like the holidays, these offers won't last.
Have a totally tubular 80s New Year's Eve at Rivers with Morris Day and the Time, December 30th. Awesome 80s New Year's Eve party, bodacious bonus drawings, and more. Rewind to the 80s at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Opioid addiction is a national public health crisis. The Someone You Know podcast from the Independence Blue Cross Foundation offers inspiring stories that challenge stigma, offer hope, and humanize the disease of addiction. Download the new season 3 of Someone You Know on all major podcast platforms. Rube, we talked to Shane Steichen on Tuesday. You wanted to give him credit, and I agree with this. He called a really good game.
I think sometimes coaches kind of outsmart themselves. All right, we're running the ball great. Let's throw it. It's like they won't be expecting that. And, there's something to that. I think, if they bring everybody up in the box, you're going to get some matchups you like. And the Eagles didn't give up the pass entirely, but something to be said for, they can't stop it. Let's just keep doing it. And I don't think enough coaches do that. I think they overthink things too much. And, I was telling Shane, the fourth quarter, they ran 22 plays. It was 18 runs and 4 passes. And
that makes sense.
It makes sense. Just keep doing it. And
especially when you're converting. Like you're trying, that's the best case scenario in the fourth quarter of a game you're winning.
Yeah. Yeah. They had the third most rushing first downs in NFL history, which just keep doing it. And so that's what I really liked about it. Sometimes it's not the fanciest, plays and who's got the deepest playbook and who's adjusting the most. Sometimes, just sticking with what's working is, that saying, dance with who brung you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes just dance with who brung you and don't try to get fancy. Don't try to overthink it. Just keep doing it until they stop it. And if they can't stop it, go home with a dub.
Yeah, and it's not like their run game is, the same play over and over again.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into their run game, a lot of different looks. And they run out of 11 personnel better than any team in the league just because their offensive line is so dynamic.
Yeah.
And the stress Jalen Hurts, just his presence puts on the defense. That's the key to their run game to me is that they can run out of pass looks.
Yeah, no, that's true. And they have, but no, you're right. And I think we should give Jeff Stoutland. Jeff Stoutland's not just the O-line coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's the running game coordinator, and he has, which makes sense. And I like that position because, why do they run the ball so well? Nobody knows better what this O-line does well than Jeff Stoutland, and he's designing runs that, accentuate what the O-line does. And when you run it for 363 yards, that's a lot of that's on the O-line. And it was. I kept looking down at oh my God, they have 200. Oh my God, they have 250. Holy crap, they have 280, and it just kept going up in chunks.
It was funny. During that game, I must have had 10 windows of searches up as I was like tracking it. I couldn't imagine your computer had to be crawling at a snail's pace by the end of that game.
Yeah, what do you think's your record for most StatHead browsers open at the same time?
I was pretty close during that game because I was tracking Jalen Hurts rushes. I was tracking team rushing. I was tracking. I think I started tracking time because they had so many plays and time of possession. I was doing a lot.
Yeah, same here. I think I had 17 browsers open. Fine, will probably get mad at me for that. That's too many browsers. But I what I did? I made sure I rebooted at halftime so my laptop could handle the
Give
stress.
It a breather.
Yeah. But yeah, it was amazing to watch, and I found myself, just don't stop doing it. Just keep doing it. It's working. But it's a combination of a coach who's committed to it, an O-line that's really good at it, and a running back and a quarterback, obviously, who's as good as anybody. Maybe not Lamar, maybe not Justin Fields. He's really fast, but he's not the he's not the passer that Jalen is. He's as good.
He's there. He's with those guys.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's every bit as good. Randall in 1990 rushed for just under 1,000 yards. Vic was faster than Jalen, but I don't think Michael Vick had the same understanding of defenses that Jalen does that really allows Jalen to really get the most use out of his running ability.
And Jalen will slide.
Yeah, Michael didn't slide. He hated it. He never figured it out. But Michael was really fast.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing with Jalen, though. It's like, and to me, that's the most important, not the most important, but one of the most important parts about him running the ball is that the attempts are crazy. Like you look at, he's going to smash the single season quarterback attempts mark, but he doesn't take hits at the end of them.
No.
Like occasionally someone will hit him late, like out of bounds where there should be a penalty. When he gets hit hard and he takes those shots, they're normally in the pocket.
Yeah.
Which is something he has to work on, but it's not. It doesn't bother me as much him taking off and running, because I think I was like predisposed to thinking there's all these extra hits on him if he's running the ball, but there really aren't. There were even moments in that game where he was like he was starting to get close to the goal line. You think, oh, he's gonna lower his shoulder, try to get in, and then he went right out of bounds.
Yeah, and I think he's so tough and strong and such a competitor that like if he needs to get in, he'll fight for those extra yards. But if he doesn't, if it's first down, first and goal in the 6, he's going to be smart about it. And we were having this conversation on the post-game show, and Jaws and Barrett were just saying it's too many rushing attempts. It's too many rushing attempts. I was like, you know what? How many times did he really get hit tonight?
That's the thing. It's like he's running free.
Yeah.
And occasionally he'll get hit here or there, but he's sliding. He's getting out of bounds. And so many of those attempts that end up in the stat sheet are QB sneaks.
Yeah. And there's a couple of kneel downs too. You take those out of the equation. I think he just had one Sunday night, but
yeah, dropped him a yard.
Yeah, 158 to 157.
Can you imagine if he had the record and had to take a knee?
Yeah. Yeah, my biggest fear, my bold prediction was 115 yards for Miles. My biggest fear was he'd get to 116, have like a 3-yard loss, and then never carry again. But, I mean, he's such a big part of this too. I mean, we talk about the O-line and Jalen, but, I mean, Miles is running the ball so well, so decisively and powerfully, and I just think he's better than he's ever been. And
I agree. Him running through contact, to me, is the biggest difference in him this year.
Yeah.
I know earlier, I'll have to check it again. He was at like 2.3 yards after contact. I'll check that now. But he's been impressive. There were moments where he didn't used to run through arm tackles. He's gotten stronger. And that's like full body strength. That's a lot of the lower body. He's running through contact. There are still some weird plays where he'll go the wrong way and he'll have a negative play, but nowhere near like the percentage of them it was earlier in his career.
Yeah, I figured out his percentage of negative runs per year has gone down. It was like 17% his rookie year. It's gone down each year. And the interesting thing is, he's not, I think because of that, he's not really hitting. He hasn't hit a big long run in the last couple of years, but his average keeps going up because he's just so consistent and so tough. And he just gets those 5s and 7s. And, lately, I think he had 3 runs of 10 yards or more, which is his most this year. I'm just a big fan of Miles Sanders. And, he's got this body of work now where, I mean, he's always been good. He just hasn't been durable. But when he's been out there, he's now on pace for, he's got 900 yards. I mean, he's on pace for 1,300 or
he's
so.
Like 4th in the NFL, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's at 5.1 per carry. I mean, this is going to be, if he finishes over 5, which I think he's got enough carries now where it's going to be hard for him to be under 5. It's possible. But he's going to be like the 5th running back with 3 straight seasons they took the season streak finder out.
Oh, geez.
It wasn't being used enough and it was too much bandwidth, but it's easy enough to figure out. But it'll be 3 straight years with 750 yards and a 5.0 average, which, like, you look it up. It's like Gale Sayers, Jim Brown, Nick Chubb. I mean, he's in great company.
He's 5th in the league in rushing behind Josh Jacobs.
What a game he had! My goodness,
he's a good player. Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb, and Saquon are the only running backs with more yards than Miles this year.
His college teammate. I'd rather have Miles than Saquon. I would.
Would you really?
I would. I'd rather have Miles than Saquon. I think Saquon's going to bust. I think Saquon's going to bust those big ones. But as far as moving, I bet if you looked up, he's a play finder. You can do this if you want. The number of negative carries he's had, I'll bet it's twice as many as Miles.
Put Saquon behind this offensive line.
Yeah, he gets hurt too.
Okay.
But
yeah, Miles doesn't.
No, not this year. That's fair. But I also think Miles. Look, I mean,
I'm not. This isn't a right against. I would rather have Saquon.
Yeah, that's fair.
All things equal.
I understand that, but I bet when all's said and done, Miles will have had a better career. Just a hunch.
Okay.
Um,
I'd lean Saquon on that.
let's ask James Franklin what he thinks.
No, I'm sure he'd answer.
Follows me on Twitter for some reason.
Does he? Give
Yeah.
him an ask there.
I'll DM him. But I mean, they're both really, really talented.
Have you changed your mind at all about Miles next year? I still think I'm in the same boat. As well as he's playing, I wouldn't prioritize signing him. I think there are other players I'd prioritize, and if you can get him back at a decent salary,
what's decent?
2 years, 10 mil.
See, I think it's going to take more than that.
Then
I think it's going to take. I think $6 million is
the starting point.
Yeah,
I'd have a hard time.
And it keeps going up.
I know. I'd have a hard time paying that for a running back.
Yeah,
maybe that's where my philosophical beliefs kind of are faulty. Maybe Miles is special enough that you pay it.
I think that's the question.
I don't know if he is.
I mean, I think
as long as you have Jalen Hurts and as long as you have that offensive line, I don't know if you need an elite running back.
I agree with all of that. I just really like the player, and I hope they can figure out a way to do it. I don't think anybody has a better chance of doing it than Howie, but there's a lot of guys he's got to worry about. Are you surprised he hasn't signed anybody?
A little bit. Yeah. And I guess the holdup is you got to figure out the Jalen contract, but you got to have an idea of what that's going to be.
But then, and then the player has to agree to that.
Yeah.
Now, if you're TJ and Howie's like, well, you're worth this, but we can only offer you this because of Jalen. Well, why would you sign that? Mm-hmm. Let's go see what happens on the open market. I'm playing well. So, yeah, I think that might be a big part of it. But I hope they bring Miles back. I mean, I agree philosophically with everything you're saying, and I've said that forever. Running backs have a short shelf life. There's no reason to invest that kind of money in them. They're interchangeable parts. You can draft a guy in the 5th round, get 800 yards out of him. Just think Miles is a pretty special player.
Yeah, I think we kind of agree and disagree at the same time there.
Yeah. But again, I wouldn't. I think my spending limit be a little higher than yours.
Okay.
I think that's probably the difference.
Fair.
I'd give him 2 years, 12.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's not egregious. That would work.
Yeah.
Okay. Tough sledding for Miles this week coming.
Yeah.
That Titans team, and we'll really break it down on Thursday on that podcast. But this is the team that when we were trying to find a loss earlier in the year, this is the one I circled.
Yeah.
I think they're probably the best team on their schedule.
I still think Dallas is better than the Titans just because I think the Titans defense is elite. They don't score a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
They got a great running back. I think they have a very good quarterback.
Maybe not the best team. Maybe the toughest matchup is what I mean to say there for the Eagles specifically.
Maybe. I think the Eagles have a better chance to beat the Titans at home than the Cowboys Christmas Eve in Dallas.
Okay.
But a loss to the Titans AFC team wouldn't be fatal to them. But it's going to be a fun game. And, they don't score a lot of points. They don't give up a lot of points. I think it'll be more like the Colts game than the Packers game.
Yeah. It's funny. Everything you think about the Titans and you think they run the football. They also stop the run.
Yeah,
I mean, they stop the run better than they run it, which is, that's really important to remember.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, they're tough to throw against too. I mean, it's just a really good defense. They're a well-coached team. They don't beat themselves. I like that the game is here.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't. You decided who you're picking yet?
Yeah. We'll get to that on Thursday.
Okay. Dave doesn't want to give me any competitive advantage.
Yeah, I've learned from Nick on that.
How about Shane today? This is off topic, but somebody asked Shane about the concept of spying Jalen Hurts, and he's like, "Well, I don't want to give you too much, but some teams do it and some teams don't."
Yeah, and I totally get it, and I'm sure they have a preference.
But you could also answer very generally that, like, when a team spies you, you're taking someone out of coverage, and it gives you some more opportunities down the field. I don't think that's really giving away any secrets.
Yeah, I think he was worried about letting go which one they'd prefer.
Maybe.
You know what I mean? Because then you let that go, defenses, well, why do they prefer this? And they probably have an idea already.
I think the Eagles would love teams to spy Jalen because unless you have a guy who can keep up with them, you're just taking a guy out of coverage and he's not doing anything.
Mhm.
So yeah, but anyway,
tough game coming. We'll really break it down.
Yeah.
On Thursday. The last thing we had on our list today, kind of a fun topic. We mentioned that Hugh Douglas and Trent Cole went into the Eagles Hall of Fame on Sunday. You had this topic idea: which current players will one day be in the Eagles Hall of Fame?
Yeah, and
there are a couple shoo-ins.
There's a couple shoo-ins. I think BG, Kelsey, Fletch, and Lane are shoo-ins.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree?
Yes, certainly Fletcher and Kelsey.
Yeah. Yeah, out of that group, maybe Lane is the least shoo-in, but I think
I think
he'll get it.
I think both Lane and B. I would put Lane above BG. I know that BG's a favorite, but Lane body of work with Lane is better.
Yeah. It's interesting.
I mean, Lane's a better player than Brandon Graham.
Yeah. I don't think it's that far off, though.
Brandon's never been the best edge rusher in football.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think the play gets BG in play. I mean, BG is just. I mean, he's been a pretty good player. I mean, he's got.
Yeah, sure.
I think he's fourth in sacks.
Yeah. No, he's a good player.
Yeah.
And he's a fan favorite.
Yeah.
Has a huge play in the Super Bowl.
And yeah, I mean, look, I think they'll both get in.
Those are the four right now that have already done enough that if they stop playing right now, they'd get in.
Yeah. No, Lane's probably. I guess if you look at body work, Lane gets the edge. But BG's been a 1 Pro Bowl. Lane's been a 3. Lane's been an All Pro once.
I mean, Lane has been 3 Pro Bowls, but he
deserves 5.
He deserves 5, and you can argue that BG didn't really deserve.
But he deserved the other year, the year he had like 9.5 sacks.
Okay,
he deserved it. But yeah, that's fair. Out of the other guys, then it gets interesting. Then because I think you have to like Brent Selleck will never get in, and I've had this conversation with Spadaro, who I think.
You don't think he will?
I don't know. I mean, I think that you need a Pro Bowl.
Okay.
As a starting point.
I find it weird that they'd never given out Brent's number.
Yeah.
I mean, we all love Brent.
Yeah.
They had these like quasi-retired numbers.
Yeah, 25.
Yeah, I mean,
Shady texts me every year at the beginning of training camp.
Find out.
Who wearing 25? Like, you're all right.
Oh, Shady.
But yeah, I think Jalen is almost a lock. I mean, it's only 30 starts, but
we once thought another quarterback would
absolutely
be a lock to get in there, huh?
And I do think this is how you doing. I do think this is different.
Yeah.
Time will tell, but I think there's a pretty good chance that one day he'll end up in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think Goddard's a guy who has a pretty good shot. He's got to make a Pro Bowl, and I think he would have if he hadn't got hurt. I still think there's a chance he might.
Mm-hmm.
Be interesting. And then you go to guys like Mulata, still early in his career.
He's so young, 25 still.
Yeah.
Good chance. Anyone on defense?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of free agents.
We don't know who's going to be here. Like if Javon stays, he's going to put together some good years, you would think.
But I don't know how many good years. Is he 30 now?
29, I think.
29, 30. I'm not sure how many 8 to 10 sack type seasons he has left, but he's playing really well.
How about Slay?
Yeah, that's an interesting one too. How many years is he going to be here?
Don't know.
I just don't know if like 4 years, 15 interceptions is enough. I think if they win the Super Bowl, you look at everyone a little differently.
Sure.
And
it's kind of the way we look at that 17 team.
Yeah.
Because there are guys who aren't in now who are on that team who will get in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, certainly. But yeah, there's fewer than I would have thought. Like when I first thought of the idea, there's fewer locks than I thought. And I think a lot of that is just the nature of this team. There's a lot of free agents, a lot of guys who are early in their career, and a lot of guys who are new on this team. A lot of turnover. So Slay's a guy who I think has a chance. A lot of it is going to be production and interceptions and Pro Bowls. We'll see.
Jake Elliott?
It's another interesting one. We'll see how long he plays, and certainly the best, long kicker they've ever had.
He boots the ball.
Nobody else in Eagles history has more than one 54-yarder. He has 5. I was talking to Akers about him. Akers had 5 54-yarders, but 4 of them were with the 49ers. He had a lot more long field goals with the Niners. He loves Jake Elliott. I was talking to him.
They know each other?
Sunday. Yeah.
I know they've interacted a little bit. I don't know how well.
Yeah. Yeah. Dave always makes sure, or Jake always makes sure he finds, Dave always makes sure he finds Jake. When he's up here. But, yeah, I mean, look, I think his Super Bowl, there's not a lot of guys left from that team, but that was one of the more underrated performances.
Akers is generally considered the best kicker in franchise history. Will Jake take that?
The Akers was here a long time, 11 years, 12 years. I'm going to say no.
Interesting.
I'm going to say no. But
I think he will.
Certainly could.
I mean, Jake's already been here since 17, so.
Yeah, 6 years.
Almost half that.
Yeah.
Or
Akers kicked a lot more. I mean, Jake's only attempted 10 field goals.
This year's been weird.
Yeah.
In general, he kicks plenty.
Yeah.
This season's just been really odd.
Yeah. But certainly, I mean, he's more accurate, but kickers in general are more accurate. I mean, I think Akers was a 78% kicker here. Yeah. But back then, that was above the average. Yeah, it's just become such a.
I love that we're finishing this podcast with like
field goal,
nitty gritty, field goal kickers.
But it's interesting to me, just how those things evolve over time. But I think there's only 4 locks, and I would put who would you put fifth? Like who's next most likely?
After who are 4 locks?
Fletch, Kelsey, Lane, and BG.
Jalen.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's interesting that there's only, and you know who else I'll throw in there? Stout.
Do they have any assistants in there?
Just Jim Johnson. There's only 3 coaches in there: Greasy Neal, Dick Vermeil, and Jim Johnson.
Okay, so we know Doug will be in there.
Big Red will be in there.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Big Red's not in there.
Got to wait for him to retire, or for the Chiefs to come to Philly. I
Doug
guess.
Might get him before Big Red.
He might. He might be retired soon. No. But yeah, gosh, I would put the guy that Doug just beat. I'd consider Harbaugh, Bud Carson. There should be like an assistant coach's wing. And it bothers me there's no assistant coaches in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
There should be.
There should be.
There should be a way to get them in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So, yeah.
All right, you good?
Yeah.
Cool. Let's wrap this up. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye Podcast, please rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. We'll be back with you on Thursday for more. We'll get into that Titans game. That's it for Rube. I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye presented by Nissan.
More kicker stats.
Live here at the Rivers Sportsbook at Rivers Casino, Philadelphia. We'll talk to you soon.